1 Kings.
Thank you, Lord.
Chapter 19, verse 19.
Praise God.
Amen.
Amen and amen.
My God. Last week, Minister Jamie brought a mighty word, amen. About saying yes to God, amen. About saying yes to Him and knowing that we have to know who He is, amen. And in that, without faith, it's impossible to please God. She preached last week. If you missed it, she preached, amen. She brought a word directly from God, amen. And hallelujah, I'm glad I was able to be a part of that, amen. Our pastor's been preaching on prayer, amen. That we have to pray until something happens, amen. That we have to pray in spite of what things look like. We have to pray in spite of what the lawman says. We have to continue to pray. We have to be consistent. We have to be courageous. And we have to be fat, as he said. We have to be fat, faithful, available, teachable, and trustworthy, amen.
Amen.
He talked about, been teaching about these things. And it's been amazing, amen.
Amen.
Today, I want to talk about burning some things.
All right.
Burning the bridges, amen. People say, oh, you don't, that not burn. Don't burn the bridges, amen. Don't burn the bridges, amen. This is something that we've been told. We better not burn our bridges. But this bridge, certain bridges we kept on to and we should have burned. Certain connections to things that we should have burned and we shouldn't kept.
Right.
So we're going to talk about these bridges that we should have burned, amen.
All right.
Elijah chapter 19, verses 19. If you have the ability to stand, let's honor God's word and stand, amen.
Amen.
When the judge enters into a courtroom, they say, everybody stand for the honor, amen. We honor men all the time. Let's honor our God this morning, amen.
Amen.
Hallelujah. You there? Light it up. Amen. It says, so he departed from there and found Elisha, the son of Seraphat, who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen before him. And he with the 12, and Elijah passed by him and cast his mantle upon him.
All right.
And he left the oxen. And he ran after Elijah and said, let me, I pray thee, kiss my father and my mother, then I will follow thee. And he said unto him, go back again, for what I have I done to thee. And he returned back from him and took the yoke of the oxen and slew them, and boiled their flesh with the instruments of the oxen and gave it unto the people, and they did eat. And he arose and went with Elijah and ministered unto him. He burned some things. You may be seated.
He burned some things.
Here in the text we have a great example of commitment being displayed. To set the scene, we have Elijah. Amen. And we know about Elijah. We know how he called fire from the heavens. We know how he was on the run. And we know that he was on the run fearing for his life because of the spirit of Jezebel. And Elijah went and he sought after God, and God fed him with from the ravens. And we've seen how God displayed his power. And I believe it was, I want to say it was Wednesday. And we recently actually just talked about how, that was at another service, excuse me, God is good. But they talked about how Elijah told the woman that she said, I'm dying. I'm about to make some bread and cake for me and my son.
Okay.
And I'm just going to die. This is it. And Elijah said, well, before you do that, make me a cake. And she did so, and God blessed her. So now Elijah is on his later part of his life, and he's walking through. and he sees Elisha.
Uh-huh.
And right before this, we have Elijah. He had a meeting with God. And God encouraged him that he was still in control no matter how bad things may look.
Right.
Church, no matter how bad things get in this world, know that God is still in control.
That's right.
So know that things were terrible for him because he felt like he was going to die, and he went out to the mountain, and there was an earthquake that happened, and God wasn't in the earthquake, and the fire fell, and God wasn't in that. It was a whole bunch of things that happened and manifested, and God wasn't in none of that. But he just showed him that no matter how bad things got and things looked terrible, then there was a still voice that came upon him, and God was in the quiet and the stillness of the voice. And it was a reminder of Elijah that things may get hectic all around you. Things may become difficult. Things may become crazy. Things may become out of control. What we may think is out of control.
Let the Spirit lead you. Go ahead.
But in the still things,
Go ahead.
it reminds us that God is still there. So sometimes in life, things are not happening.
Right.
And it just seems like we're in a still moment.
Right.
And it seems like it's not difficult, it's not bad, it's not good. It's just a slow season. And it's a reminder that God is still there. That God is still there. There's some people that need chaos. And God says that he's not in the midst of the chaos, but he's in the midst. He's still in control. Amen? And so we find here Elisha. He's hard at work, plowing. I find this quite interesting because he's plowing with 12 oxen, which made me believe that he has come from a wealthy family. Because one, he has 12. Two, a good thing I see here, what makes me think is that he's working. He's doing something. He's out of work. And he's working, and his family is wealthy. So what I like about the situation is, most of the time that we think of somebody finding Jesus or finding a calling, we find them in a desperate place. We find them in a place where they're broken. We find them in a place that most of us, how we received our calling, we were on the run, and we was broken, and we was busted, and we was disgusted, and we were like, okay, God, I give up, I'll come to you. But Elijah's story, Elisha has a different story. He's comes from money. He's at work. He doesn't need anything in a physical. He's good.
Right.
Let me tell you, church, no matter how good you may feel you are, how successful you may be, there's still a desperation that we need God. See, sometimes we only serve God for substantial things, physical things, for the cars, the phones, and for the homes. But there's a man here named Elisha that was wealthy in his actions. He was good. He did not need anything financially to motivate him to serve God.
All right.
He comes from a wealthy family.
Right.
So, and the great thing about this, and coming from a wealthy family, he has the 12 oxen. He's out there plowing the ground. He could have had somebody else doing the work.
Yes.
He could have paid someone to do this. But this tells us that what he had in him, it was a quality of commitment first. It was something that he possessed.
Okay.
It was something that he possessed, that the willingness to do work.
Yes.
A lot of us want the manifestation and want the power and want the glory, but we're not willing to do work.
Come on.
See, we see Elisha here. He could have had somebody out there plowing. He could have just been overseeing.
Right.
But the text says that he was plowing.
All right.
He was doing the work. He had the willingness to do the job. He was out there in the sun, and he was out there breaking up the ground. He was out there doing something that somebody else could have been doing.
Right.
But he had something inside him that was shown that he was willing to do. What is inside you?
Make it plain.
Church, I must ask, what are you willing to do? What are you, not what are you forced to do? Not what you feel that you're obligated to do.
Make it plain.
But what are you willing
to do? Come on.
willing to do?
Come on now. Come on.
What are you willing to do?
Yes.
Do this willingly. Whether they ask me or not, I'm going to do this. Whether I need to or not, I'm still committed. Whether the church is praying and fasting, I still am willing to do so. They don't have to be willing to, but I'm willing to. The second thing about the text is he's plowing.
Yes.
He's plowing. And we know, we fast forward, we know what Elijah does. But in this moment before he's called into what he's doing, one, we see that in the qualities of the man of God was he was, one, willing to do the work. Two, the second thing we notice is that he's plowing the ground. And what makes plowing... what is plowing? To understand what plowing is to break up the ground so it's ready to receive seed. So usually the ground is either hard and so they have to have the ox, and the ox will pull in, they'll break the ground up ready to receive. So Elijah himself is preparing the ground to receive something.
To receive.
Just a quick sidebar.
I like that.
Just a quick sidebar. Things in your life may seem like they are falling apart.
Yes.
Things may seem like they're being disrupted. Just know that God is preparing you to receive some seed. And the only reason why you are planting seed, you must become an expert on harvest. So let me tell you something. The only way you can expect a harvest is unless seed is being planted. So what happened is he's breaking up the ground. He's disrupting the ground. The ground is sitting there and he's breaking it up, ready to receive something. Church, sometimes things are getting broke up in our lives. Sometimes things are being disrupted and things are seem to be getting turned inside out because God is trying to make us ready to be able to receive something. And if you try to give it to you on the surface, you cannot receive it.
All right.
So the way the ground receives the seed is it has to be broken up. It has to be broken up. Certain things in our life has to be broken up. We get too comfortable. Things are too stand still. Things are solid. And if you throw seed on a solid ground, it will not take.
It won't receive.
Right.
It won't take.
Right.
If everything seems to be perfect and I don't need nothing, and when somebody's offering you Jesus, it won't take.
Right.
Well, I don't have no problems. Everything's going good. I don't need no Jesus. But when things get broken up a bit, when all of a sudden the things that you thought were hidden, the deep things, and all of a sudden they become surface deep and it gets broken up. And when the seed comes out, now you're ready to receive something that's being planted. That's just a side note. God sometimes breaks things up so we can receive something. But the only way that you can expect a harvest is something has been planted. So when things in this time for a harvest season and there's manifestations happening all around us, we have to understand, was I willing to let things get broken up so I can receive some seed? Was I willing to accept the fact that I needed Jesus? When the word was preached and the altar call was called out and said, is there anyone out there that need help with this or that? Was I willing to allow myself to become vulnerable enough to receive the seed from God? And if I wasn't willing enough, ready to receive from God, therefore I cannot expect a harvest. Wow. And the text says that he was plowing. Yes. And he was plowing. And the great thing about plowing, it reminds me of Luke 9:62 when it says, no one put his hand on the plow and looked back. He is not worthy of the kingdom. Mm-hmm. He said, if you grab the plow and you begin to plow and you look back, he says you're not worthy of the kingdom.
Not worthy.
Why? And I began to look into the factor of what does he mean by grabbing onto the plow and looking back? Because the dangerousness of grabbing the plow, beginning to do the work, but begin to look back means you take your eye off what you're doing. Okay. And you take your eye off what you've been focused on and what you committed yourself to. And then when you plow the ground, the roads have to be... We live in an agriculture area, so we didn't pass by orchards. We didn't see over there where they're planting things. And if you look, all the roads are straight. Right. Whenever you drive on the freeway, you look in the orchards, you see every line. You see lines, straight lines, straight lines, straight lines. And it tells you whoever was plowing the ground, they kept their eyes forward. Because what happens when you plow ground and you look back or you take your eyes off what happens, all of a sudden the rows become crooked. And when the rows become crooked and you try to plant seed, what happens is the plants will be intercrossed and they cannot grow. See, what happened is you took your eyes off what you're supposed to be doing, and now your rows are crooked, and when things are supposed to be manifested, it's being choked out.
All right.
Because your rows are not right. Because I'm not living a correct life, so I'm expecting growth, and things in my growth is being stunted.
Right.
Because I took my eyes off
Okay.
when I grabbed the plow.
Yeah.
When I grabbed the plow. The thing is, straight lines produce a great harvest. Straight lines produce a straight. Me being committed to the task will produce a great manifestation of power.
All right.
Yes.
But when I'm not committed to what God has called me to do, or more or less the text says, when a person grabs on the plow. So when I told God, this is what I'm going to do, God, for your kingdom's sake. Not what I was forced to do, but it said that when a man grabs on, that means we made the commitment to do a job. But all of a sudden we begin to look back.
Yeah.
You're telling the truth. Come on.
All of a sudden we begin to doubt.
You're teaching.
All of a sudden we took our eyes off why. And our lines became crooked.
Come on.
And we're sitting there in harvest season wondering what has happened.
What happened?
What happened? What happened? See, the diligence of being committed to something means I have to work when other people may not be working. The diligence of being committed to something is I got to do it when nobody else may be looking. The diligence of being committed to something is I have to give it my all. I cannot be half-hearted. Certain people got jobs in this world and they're in places just simply because of hard work. Simply because of commitment to something. And you have other people that's trying to do it over YouTube. Watch YouTube videos and learn how to do it. It's not the same thing. It is not the same thing. Certain times, and especially when it comes to the kingdom of God, it's going to take a level of commitment if we're going to expect a manifestation of God's power.
Right. Right.
Whether anyone else is in it or not. It was a commitment that we have made unto God, what we must be faithful unto.
We must be faithful.
The danger of looking back is why people fall out with God. Because they expected a harvest and they expected something to happen. They walked away from it to show back up when everybody else was getting blessed and wonder, where's mine at, God?
My portion.
Come on.
Come on.
What about my manifestation?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
It was the fasting and praying that when you walked away, that they continued to do is why the blessing happened.
Amen.
And it was a commitment when nobody else showed up. They were still there. It's why the manifestation happened. We only see sometimes the outcome, but not the work put into it. And the fact of the situation behind every blessing and manifestation of power, there was some work put into it. There were some tears that happened. There was some commitment that took place. And the fact is, when we say yes to God, we have to say yes to the commitment
Right.
of being with God.
Yes. Yes.
What does that mean?
Yes.
I have to be willing to burn a few things.
Make it plain. Make it plain.
We've been called to love God with all that we have, heart, soul, mind. Looking back means that we're not loving God with all that we have. See, when it says mind, body, it says love our mind and our soul and our strength. See, the strength part, I believe, is when things get hard, this is when I have to hold on.
Yes.
When things become difficult and my faith is calling to be, when my faith is calling to be manifested, is where my strength lies at. See, it's one thing to be able to do things when I have my senses. When I can see
Okay.
the thing, when I can touch the thing,
All right.
I may be able to taste or even smell. You know, you come home, you smell. When I come home from work, I can, downstairs, I can smell the cooking.
Yeah.
I come home and know my wife's in there cooking on the side. But there's one thing to come and don't be able to smell anything.
Yeah.
Do I trust the fact that she did what she said she was going to do, even though I can't smell the manifestation of it? See, do we trust God to do what God said He'll do, even though I can't smell anything? I can't touch it, God. I don't see it happening. I can't feel it happening. Do I trust God enough? Or do I begin to look back?
Come on now.
Woo!
I could have made that happen, God. I could have did some things and made it happen. Or do I look back? See, he was plowing something. He was willing to do the work. And therefore, he was plowing lines. Ready, preparing for some seed to come. These are qualities that Elisha has. And Elijah comes by and he throws a mantle upon him. And throws a mantle upon him. He goes to tell him, let me go back, kiss my mother and my father, and then I'll come with you. He said, return back to him. This is where the amazing thing happens. He returned back from him, and he took the yoke of oxen, and he slew them. He slew them. He went back to where this is where my income comes from. This is my source right here. This is why I have resources, because people will trade and buy still, and they'll trade things. Okay, well, you have that, I have this. Let's trade these things.
Come on now. Yeah.
Okay, well, we had this land over here, and I can give you this for that. This is where my income comes from. This is where my power's at, because I have possessions. But he came back, and he slew them. He burned them. He burned everything. He let go of the physical things to grab something spiritual.
Right.
He let go of something that he seen, held, to grab onto something that he could not see.
Okay.
The thing is, the great thing about this is where Elijah even found Elisha at when he threw the mantle upon him. See, Elijah, he was known to teach the school of prophets.
All right.
So Elijah would teach about the prophecies and how to become. But Elisha himself, he wasn't found in those school of prophets. He was found at work, doing something, committed to something, focused on something. And the thing about the situation is, and he came, and when he had the opportunity, he went back and he publicly displayed his position. He publicly displayed this. He didn't receive his calling. He didn't say yes to God in private and live in private still. He received it and publicly displayed his position.
Right.
I'm not going back. I'm not going back. He was ready to forsake everything to pursue and to answer his call.
Yes.
He slew. It's like receiving the call and quitting your job. This is what he did. He went to his mother and father, because usually, because mom and dad rich don't make you rich, but because when mom and dad got money, I got money because they got money. And when they pass on, I know the money that they got become my money, so therefore I'm already going to be set. But what he did was, he went to his mom and dad and kissed them and told them, I'm leaving. So I don't care the things that you have to offer, but I received something greater than myself. Then he went out to the field where he earned his living at. And he slew the oxen. And he began to burn everything that it took to train the oxen with. And he put it on public display, saying, this is what I'm going to do. He burned some things. He burned the bridge from his past, from his future. Church, I'm asking, have you burned that bridge yet? Or are some people still looking back and I have a safe route home? Just in case gotta account that they don't know about.
Uh-huh.
See, what he did, he displayed in front of everybody his position. Are you displaying in front of everybody your position? Are you at home proclaiming the gospel to the ones that do not believe? Are you at school standing up? I don't know what you do, but as for me and my house, this is what we do. Are you proclaiming and forsaking the things that you knew for the things I'm not sure of, but I know he's able?
Yes.
God is able.
Yes.
Elisha burned everything. He didn't burn 10 and keep 2 just in case.
Oh, come on, make it plain.
But it said he slew them all.
Teach.
He slew them all. And he says he boiled their flesh with the instruments, the things that held them together to make sure the lines were plowed straight was the same thing that he burned to boil the flesh with. He burned it all. He didn't just kill the oxen but keep the instruments. But he burned the instruments as well.
Look at here.
And he said he gave it unto the people. He said, all what I had. He says, we can enjoy it now.
Right.
We can enjoy this. Because where I'm going to, I'm not going to need none of this no more. God wants some type of commitment from us. We must be ready to let go of everything if we're willing to obey God's will for us.
That's right.
We have to be willing to forsake this world in order to please God. But the fact of the situation is, we like to have safety nets. We like to have if I jump, I need something to make sure something's going to catch me.
Okay.
I need something to make sure that if I fall, that I'm not going to fall flat. But God is asking, can you jump? Can you jump without the bungee rope? Can you just jump out the plane without the parachute? Do you really have faith that God is able? Or do you need something to hold on to? We have to be willing to burn bridges.
Yeah.
Do not exchange our spiritual calling for something temporary or physical. Do not be willing to exchange what God has blessed us and given us with, even though we don't see the manifestation of it yet,
Come on.
for something temporary. Let me give you an example.
Make it plain.
Let me give you an example. Go to the Word of God.
All right.
We had 2 brothers. One brother was known as a hunter. He hunted.
All right now.
Right.
This is what he did. He would go out and he would hunt. And we had another brother, he hung around the house.
Right.
He hung around the house. And the brother came home and told him, I'm starving. He said, if I don't eat, I'm going to die. The crazy thing about the situation, the story to me, was this man was a hunter.
Right.
What do you mean? If I don't eat, I'm going to die.
Where you come from? I see.
This is what you do. You just came from the field.
Right.
And a real hunter don't come back unless they got something.
Amen.
Because if you don't keep them nothing, you don't eat.
Right.
So he came back and said, I'm hungry. And brother, if I don't eat, I'm going to die. The brother told him, you give me your birthright.
That's what he said.
He at the time, he doesn't need it. You don't need it. I'm good right now. Mom and daddy there. If you trade me with your birthright, I'll give you the suit. The fact of the situation is, we do this all the time. God has put a calling upon our life to live a certain type of way. And we get into situations where I either trust God to make a way, I can trade my spirituality for something physical. Either I live at the level of calling that God has called me to.
Wow. Come on. Come on.
But this flesh right now seems, this temporary thing seems so good.
Right. Woo. Teach.
It will be pleasing unto me now. It won't mean much 10 minutes from now, but in this moment, it means everything. My God, this is a tough situation.
Woo. Come on.
In this moment,
Come on.
in this moment, it means a lot.
That temporary pleasure. Come on.
But 10 minutes from now, it ain't going to have no value.
Come on.
And this is what happens. Something temporary. The pleasures of this flesh, we begin to get and we fall to every single time. And we're not living to the committed life that God has called us to be at.
All right. All right. All
We're
right.
trading our spiritual things for fleshy things. And we call our... And the fact of the situation is we're exchanging spiritual for fleshy because our faith doesn't see beyond right now.
Right now.
Amen.
Beyond right now.
Right now.
In this moment, this seems to be better.
Right.
Knowingly, this is not
That
better.
is not better.
This is not right.
Right. Right.
This is not how I'm supposed to be living. But in this moment,
Uh-huh.
it's also right.
Oh, come on. Come on, T.
But in this moment, it seems okay.
Let the Spirit lead you.
And the fact of the situation is, how do we get this way? We begin to abuse God's goodness and His grace. And we think, okay, if I do this, God, He'll forgive me. And if I do this, it'll be okay. If this happens, I know God is still good.
Come on now.
But the situation is, when we do things like this is looking back while we're plowing. My God. This is looking back while we're plowing. I know what's in front of me, but this right now seems good. Then later on, I'm wondering, God, why is this so chaotic? Why are my children not acting right? God, why is my marriage not doing what it's supposed to be doing? God, why am I not receiving the blessings from heaven?
Right. Okay. Okay.
These are those crooked lines. These are those crooked lines.
What a word, what a word. Go
We're
on.
not living committed.
Right.
We're living conventional.
Right.
So it's convenient over commitment.
Come on.
So commitment will cause me to say no to certain things.
Yes, Lord.
Commitment will cause this flesh to be broken down.
Yes.
Oh, but convenience.
Lord.
But convenient.
But convenience.
Oh, but convenient.
I can have it now.
Yeah.
Oh, nobody would know about this.
Uh-huh.
And we live this life
Uh-huh.
and wondering, why am I not getting ahead?
Okay.
Why isn't the fullness of the harvest happening? Why am I seeking and I feel like I'm not finding?
Right.
For the factor is, we're not committed to seeking. We're not committed to the task, the diligent doing the work. We're living out of convention, out of what was convenient in the moment, and exchanging our spiritual things for temporary and physical things.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
The ability to not be committed and to do the work and full-heartedly do the task is why we find ourselves in hardships and missing the victories in life.
Make it
All right.
Let me tell you about Elijah.
Right. Right.
Let me tell you.
Make it plain.
So if you go over to 2 Kings, Elijah is now ruling and reigning, and he goes to the king,
Make it plain.
and the king tells him that he tells him to shoot an arrow out the window towards your enemies. He says, if you shoot the arrow at your enemies, the enemies weren't coming. But you shoot the arrow at the enemies so you can be victorious over your enemies. So out of the window, it's in 2 Kings chapter 13. So he pulls back and he shoots the arrow towards where his enemies are at.
Okay.
So he understands a couple things in this moment. That his arrows are what's going to bring his victory.
All right.
So he shoots the arrow towards his enemies, and the arrow goes out. Then Elijah the king goes out and he tells him, strike the ground. Strike the ground. And in the reading of the text, when he tells him to strike the ground, when I first understood the text, I thought he meant to actually physically hit the ground with arrows, which didn't quite make sense. But then understanding to strike something with the arrow means to shoot the arrow.
Okay.
So he tells him to strike it. So he goes and he strikes the ground 3 times. And the man of God tells him, because you only struck the ground 3 times, therefore you still have your enemies ahead of you. You'll be victorious in certain things, but you're not gonna completely win over them. And there's so many battles you have to fight because you only struck the ground 3 times. This leads me to believe that he had a quiver full of arrows. And because the lack of commitment to continue to shoot until he was empty, it had him fighting battles that he had no business having to fight. The thing in the situation is because of lack of commitment to go all out for Jesus, have us struggling in areas because we're not willing to give it all when it seems like nothing. My God, I don't need to be fasting and praying because everything in my life seems to be okay right now. So I don't need to do this. Even though my spirit is telling me, just fast a bit. Just pray a bit. Just go into prayer. We know prayers on Wednesday. Just go out and pray. But everything is good, God. Why is it telling me to come out to prayer? We don't need nothing. But what God is doing is preparing us in a season that we're not ready for yet. We will never show up to a weightlifting competition if we haven't prepared before the competition.
Right.
You never, in any sport, they always practice before the game. They always prepare themselves before the situation. When they tell you a storm coming, prepare yourself, a storm is coming. Board up the windows, get your sandbags, get your water, get your canned food. You're going to be in for a while. The preparation. The fact that when it comes to Christianity and it comes to us serving God, we're never prepared for the storm. We don't pray before the storm happens. We don't fast before we need to. We don't seek God before we're lost. All we do is wait for the storm, then we begin to call out over the difficulties.
Yes.
We don't eat the way we're supposed to. And all of a sudden, we have ailments in our body, and all of a sudden we're calling upon God.
Right.
God!
Right.
Where are you? When I told you to eat a certain way, when I told you to not be greedy, that's where I was at. I was there in the committed levels before the storm ever came. But the fact of the situation is we're not committed before the situation happens. Our commitment and our diligence only show up when the storm becomes present. And by that time, we already have to fight battles that we had no business fighting because we were not committed before the fact of the battle.
Yes.
I know this is heavy. I know. But I'm just trying to help somebody here. I'm just trying to help somebody. And if we're going to say yes, if we're going to be committed unto God, the commitment starts now. The commitment is going to start before we run into the first storm. The commitment to what God is doing is going to start before you pick up and begin to preach in the ministry. And the thing about it is, God already placed the desire inside you before the calling is upon you.
Yes.
I did not realize this until this moment. Before I was called and began to preach and minister, there was things that God put inside me to do. Messages that I will be writing. I have like 5 messages written out. Nowhere to preach at, but I got messages. Books that he put inside me. I didn't need the book, didn't need the power of the book, but it was something that he put inside me. And to this day, I'm like, no, I should have been did that. Now that I see the need for it, I'm trying to scramble and make it happen. When God placed it in me before he called me.
All right.
See, the situation is the commitment level that God has placed in you. It doesn't seem like it's necessary right now. But when he calls it out of you, you're going to be scrambling your half doing things.
Yeah.
Because therefore he prepared you a long time ago.
All right.
Church, what am I telling you?
Right.
We want bigger. We want more. We want deeper. But I'm telling you that we have to show that same level of commitment to swimming in 3 feet before we jump into 30.
Yes.
What am I saying? The same level of which we're going to get there. When we get to the other side. When we get to the bigger building, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to show up. I'm going to invite my friends. If you're not inviting them now, you're not going to invite them over there. If the ministry's not in you now, The ministry's not going to be with you over there if you're not doing the work now. You're going to get over there and you're going to drown. Because the level of commitment starts before the battle has started.
All right.
Yes, it does. Come on now. Read.
We got to be committed to the calling. What is, I'm going to wrap it up here.
Yes, Lord.
I'm going to close with this. Philippians 3:13.
All right, all right.
It says it like this. Forgetting those things which are behind me. And reaching forward to the things which are ahead. I'm forgetting about my previous disappointments. I'm forgetting about my previous lifestyle. I'm forgetting about the things I used to do. I'm forgetting about any past shame or any past glory. So certain times we feel like we have to, and the moment, my God. In my old days, I used to glorify being a player. I just thought I was the best thing moving. I be braggadocious about it with my partners. Oh man, I knocked 3-4 today. Happy about it.
Right.
And in the moment it seemed to be good. And now that I'm in the position I am now, I don't like the fact that I did that. And I remember I was talking with my friend one day, we were at the gym. I'm telling him, I wish I didn't do all that I did when I was growing up. I just wish I didn't do it. And he's like, why do you say that? I'm like, because where I'm at now, it's just, I don't like being in certain places with my wife and then knowing that, therefore, I used to talk to that person over there. Oh, I used to talk to that person over there. It's just not a good feeling. Because my wife, she lived a different lifestyle than me. She lived a life of commitment and unto God before man. So therefore, I can't walk in no room where she been and I used to talk. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And I'm like, I wish I can be that same way to her.
Right.
See, in the beginning, certain things that we in the moment when I first got saved, I didn't think I had to forget those things.
Yeah.
But I got to forget the things I used to glorify too.
Yeah.
Because if I don't forget the things I used to glorify, when things become hard, all of a sudden, I'll begin plowing, but I'm looking back.
Exactly.
So the things that we have to forget is not only the things that we messed up in, but the things that we had bigged up and the things that we thought were great in our life. We have to forget those things. Because if I'm looking back, and I remember God moved and He shook and the heavens opened up. And I'm looking back and I'm trying to plow. And I'm looking back and talking about the good old days. And I'm looking back and I'm plowing forward. Why is my church not growing now? Why is my ministry thriving now? I'm looking backwards about what I used to do. But I'm not. I'm forsaking the ground ahead of me. So I'm forgetting. Not that they didn't happen. I know that they happened.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
But I don't believe those are my best days.
Yes.
I don't believe that was I don't believe that was it.
That's it.
I'm looking forward to reaching to something greater now. I'm looking forward to reaching to something better now. God, I seen you move back then, but I know, God, you're going to do something new. Because His word says in the last days, He's pouring out His Spirit. So I seen Him pour out His Spirit, and I done seen dead rise, but I can't wait to see the graveyard rise now. I can't wait to see greater things. And God, the problem is, we just keep looking back.
Whoa.
I remember, there was casting out demons, speaking in tongues, and doing all this. I'm looking backwards. And I'm forsaking what's in front of me. I'm forsaking what's in front of me, the ministries that is in front of me. So we have to, church, if we're going to plow, if we're going to say yes, if we're going to grab a hold onto this plow, certain things are going to have to burn. Certain things, there's no exceptions. There's no compromise, and there's no looking back at certain things. I'm going to have to burn every bit of it. And let the world have it. And I'm grabbing onto this plow.
Come on now.
And then the manifestation of everything before this is that I'm going to know that I may have seen some good things in the back. But greater days are coming. And the reason why I know greater things, because now I'm focused on what's ahead of me. Now I'm focused and I'm committed to what's in front of me. So I don't have to worry about what's done already because I'm looking forward to God is doing something new. I'm expecting something. I'm plowing with expectation. And when I'm plowing with expectation, I'm doing the job diligently. I'm doing a lot more. I'm expecting things to happen with nobody else. I'm showing up like I did before because I'm expecting.
Right.
I'm expecting something.
Right.
So my head is forward, and I'm focused, and I'm committed, because I'm expecting.
Yes, Lord.
If you're looking back, there's no way you're expecting anything. You think it's all been said and it's all been done. But I'm here to tell you, as long as there's breath in your lungs, and you're reaching for the plow, greater things are ahead of you.
Yes.
But we must forget
Uh-huh.
the things which are behind us.
Yes, Lord. Press
And begin to reach. I'm reaching.
Yes, Lord.
I'm reaching out of expectation.
Yes.
I'm reaching because something is greater.
Greater.
I'm reaching
Yes.
because I know there's more.
Yes.
I'm reaching. I'm reaching. I'm pressing forward to something. It's just a high call.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Pressing.
Glory to God.
I'm reaching
Yes.
to what's ahead of me. I know I've seen some good things behind me,
Come
but ahead of me, I know God got something better.
on.
Church, I'm here to tell you that our best days haven't happened yet. I'm here to tell you that the good old days don't have nothing compared to what God has in front of us. And I'm here to tell you that God is doing a new thing.
New thing.
A new thing. And the word said if he told you, you wouldn't believe it. So I'm here just to tell you, church, begin to expect something. Because as long as you're expecting, you'll continue to look forward.
I'm receiving. Come on.
You'll continue to keep your eyes on ahead of you.
I'm receiving.
Yes.
And you will not plow with your head backwards. And therefore, when harvest season comes, my God, when harvest time comes, I can expect a harvest because I was committed during the plowing.